Good day. It is a pleasure to have this time to explore one of the most fascinating subjects imaginable, the difference that makes the difference between a life of average results and a life of astonishing success. Have you ever stopped to look at the skyline of a great city? You will see structures of all kinds. You will see simple, functional buildings that serve their purpose, and then you will see breathtaking cathedrals and towering skyscrapers that seem to defy gravity and inspire awe. And I would ask you to consider this. Every human life is also a structure. Every day, with every thought, every word, and every action, you are engaged in an act of construction. The profound question is not if you are building. The only question is, what are you building? And are you building it by accident, or are you building it by design? Most people drift through life as tenants in a structure built by circumstance. Their thoughts are shaped by the news. Their words are borrowed from the crowd. Their actions are reactions to the events of the day. They are living in a house they did not design, and they wonder why it does not feel like home. But the winners, the high achievers, the people who build lives of impact and abundance, they operate from a different philosophy altogether. They understand a simple, powerful truth. You are the architect of your own life. This understanding changes everything. It is the shift from being a passenger to being the pilot, from being a piece on the chessboard to being the player. It is the acceptance of the ultimate power and the ultimate responsibility. So for the next hour, we will embark on a journey together. We will not merely talk about success. We will study the very blueprint of its creation. We will explore the foundational pillars upon which a life of victory is built. We will discuss the discipline of thought, the discipline of communication, the discipline of action, and the discipline of character. If you are ready to move from being a tenant in your life to becoming its master architect, then let us begin. The first and most critical duty of the architect is not to lay a single brick. It is not to hire a single worker. It is to go into a quiet room and create the blueprint. A building constructed with shoddy materials can be repaired. A building constructed with lazy workers can be corrected. But a building constructed from a flawed blueprint is doomed from the very beginning, no matter how hard the builders work. Your thinking is the blueprint of your life. Every great success you will ever have will be built first in the invisible world of your mind before it can ever manifest in the visible world of reality. This is the first discipline, the discipline of thought. Welcome. We are about to embark on the first and most foundational part of our journey together. In our introduction, we established the grand metaphor for our work, that you are the architect of your own life. A magnificent idea, a powerful and liberating truth. But before an architect can draw a single line on a blueprint, before they can even conceive of the grand spires and mighty halls, they must first master the raw material of their craft. And what is the raw material of the architect of life? It is not stone, nor steel, nor glass. The raw material, the very substance from which all realities are created, is thought. Every cathedral of success, every shack of mediocrity, every prison of failure that has ever existed in the world was first built in the quiet, invisible workshop of a human mind. Your life, as it stands today, is a direct physical manifestation of the quality of your thinking up to this point. This brings us to the first and most fundamental discipline. Before we can talk about speaking like a winner or acting like a winner, we must first learn to think like a winner. We must master the discipline of thinking with purpose. To understand purposeful thinking, we must first have the courage to examine its opposite, which is the default state of the untrained mind, reactive thinking. I want you to imagine your mind as a small boat on a vast, powerful river. This is the river of reaction. For most people, this is where their mental life takes place. They do not steer their boat, they simply float. The currents of this river are the headlines of the morning news, the endless scroll of social media, the opinions of their colleagues, the gossip of their neighbors, the urgent demands of the day. Their boat is carried along, bumping from one bank to the other. If the news is bad, their mood is bad. If a colleague is critical, their confidence wavers. If an unexpected problem arises, their day is thrown into chaos. They spend their entire lives in a state of reaction. believing they are the victims of the river's unpredictable currents. They do not realize they have a rudder and a sail at their disposal. What is the cost of living a life in the river of reaction? It is a life of quiet frustration. It is a life of feeling perpetually behind, of being a servant to circumstances rather than the master of them. It is the tragedy of having your life's blueprint drawn not by your own hand, but by the random chaotic currents of the world. The first act of a winner, the first great declaration of the architect, is the decision to stop floating. It is the decision to pick up the oars, to set the sail, and to begin deliberately steering toward a chosen destination, regardless of the direction of the current. This is the shift from reactive thinking to creative, purposeful thinking. So how does this shift begin? It begins with the quality of the questions you ask yourself. Your questions are the rudder of your mind. They determine the direction of your focus. The reactive mind, when faced with a challenge, asks a set of disempowering questions. Why did this happen to me? Whose fault is this? Isn't this terrible? These questions are all oriented toward the past. They seek blame, they amplify negativity, and they lead to a feeling of helplessness. They are the questions of a victim. The purposeful mind, the mind of the architect, has trained itself to ask a different, more powerful set of questions. When faced with the very same challenge, it asks, what does this make possible? What is the opportunity hidden within this difficulty? What is the most constructive action I can take right now? These questions are oriented toward the future. They seek solutions, they look for advantages, and they compel action. These are the questions of a creator. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine you arrive at a large, heavy, locked door. The reactive mind focuses entirely on the problem, the lock. It studies the lock, it complains about the lock, it laments the injustice of the door being locked in the first place. It describes the problem in exquisite detail. The purposeful mind acknowledges the locked door for a moment, and then immediately turns its focus away from the problem and begins searching for the solution. Is there a key? Is there another door? Is there an open window? Are there tools nearby with which I can build a new door? The winner understands a profound truth. The quality of your life is not determined by the number of locked doors you face, but by your dedication to becoming a master of finding keys. Stop falling in love with your problems. Stop describing them in detail to anyone who will listen. Your problems do not deserve that much of your attention. Your energy, your focus, your creative power must be invested entirely in the design and execution of the solution. This is the first and most critical act of purposeful thought. As you master the shift from problem focus to solution focus, you can then move to a higher level of thinking. This is not just about solving problems, but about transforming them. This is the mindset of the alchemist. The ancient alchemists sought to perform the magical act of turning common lead into precious gold. The master thinker is a mental alchemist. They have learned the discipline of taking the lead of adversity, of setbacks, of failure, and transmuting it through the power of their perspective into the gold of a lesson, a new strength, or a unique competitive advantage. This is the deeper meaning of seeing challenges as opportunities. It is not just a positive platitude, it is a profound strategic choice. Consider the story of a small local bookstore faced with the arrival of a massive online retail giant, a devastating piece of lead. The reactive mind would say, this is the end. We cannot compete. We are finished. The alchemical mind asks, what does this make possible? It realizes it cannot compete on price or selection, the giant's strengths. But it can compete on community, on personal service, on creating a beautiful, curated experience that the online giant can never replicate. It transmutes the lead of a threat into the gold of a unique identity, and it thrives. Every setback holds the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit, but only if you have the wisdom to look for it. When you lose a major client, it is an opportunity to analyze your weaknesses and improve your service for all future clients. When a product launch fails, it is an opportunity to gain priceless market feedback that will make your next launch a success. The winner does not ask for an easy life. They ask for the strength and the wisdom to extract the value from a difficult life. They understand that smooth seas do not make skillful sailors. It is the storms, the challenges, the adversities, the very things the average person tries to avoid that are the raw materials for greatness. The alchemist does not fear the lead. They welcome it as the necessary ingredient for creating their gold. Now, a crucial part of purposeful thinking is understanding that the architect's mind must be a clean, well-ordered space. You cannot design a masterpiece in the midst of chaos and clutter. This leads us to a discipline that may sound strange, but is essential in our modern world. The discipline of deliberate ignorance. To think with purpose about the things that matter, you must have the courage to be ignorant about the things that do not. Imagine the desk of a master architect. It is a clean, clear space. On it you will find only the blueprint they are currently working on and the essential tools needed for that task. Now imagine the desk of an amateur. It is buried under a mountain of clutter. Old plans, unrelated magazines, yesterday's coffee cups, unopened mail, and a dozen other distractions. How can any clear, focused, purposeful thinking happen in such an environment? Your mind is that desk. Every day, 1,000 things are vying to clutter your mental desk. The political argument of the hour, the celebrity gossip, the endless stream of trivial updates from people you barely know, the outrage of the day. If you allow all of this to pile up on your desk, you will have no space left for the important work of designing your own life. Purposeful thinking requires that you go on a strict information diet. You must become the ruthless curator of the inputs you allow into your mind. You would not fuel a high-performance race car with low-quality contaminated gasoline. Why then would you fuel your mind with the low-quality contaminated information of the world? This means making conscious choices. It means choosing to read a book that will grow your mind instead of scrolling through a feed that will numb it. It means choosing to listen to a podcast that teaches a new skill instead of listening to the radio's litany of complaints. It means choosing to be ignorant about the 99% of information that is irrelevant to your goals so you can achieve mastery in the 1% that is. Finally, purposeful thinking must be directed not just at the tasks of the day, but at the grand vision of a lifetime. This is the discipline of thinking big. I want you to cultivate what I call the horizon habit. Most people spend their lives looking down at their own feet. They are focused on the immediate next step, on the pebbles and the potential pitfalls directly in front of them. And this is necessary to avoid tripping. But a life lived looking only at your feet is a small life. You will never be inspired by the sight of the dirt on your shoes. The purposeful thinker, the architect of life, understands the need to look at their feet to navigate the day. But they make it a non-negotiable daily habit to also lift their gaze and look out at the distant horizon. The horizon is your grand 5 or 10-year vision. It is the finished cathedral. It is the magnificent garden in full harvest. The horizon habit is the practice of spending just 5 minutes every single morning before the clutter of the day begins to vividly and emotionally connect with that long-term vision. This is not idle daydreaming. It is a strategic act of mental calibration. It does two crucial things. First, it reignites your emotional fuel. It reminds you why you are undertaking the difficult daily work of sharpening your axe and pulling the weeds. It connects your daily labor to a magnificent purpose. Second, it informs your daily decision-making. By keeping the horizon in your mind's eye, you can ask yourself a simple question throughout the day. Does this action I am about to take move me one step closer to that horizon, or does it lead me down a different path? This habit ensures that your purposeful thinking today is always aligned with your ultimate purpose for your life. And so, we see that thinking with purpose is not a passive state. It is an active, multifaceted discipline. It begins by making the conscious choice to escape the river of reaction. It is practiced by shifting your focus from the problem to the possibility. It is elevated by the alchemist's eye that transmutes adversity into advantage. It is protected by the discipline of deliberate ignorance, keeping your mental workspace clean. And it is guided by the horizon habit, ensuring your daily thoughts are aligned with your ultimate destiny. You have now mastered the first and most fundamental act of the architect. You have learned how to prepare the very ink and paper with which you will design your life. You have learned how to think with purpose. Now that you have this clarity of thought, you must begin to master the crucial conversation you have with the master builder, your own subconscious mind. You must learn the discipline of the inner dialogue. In our last chapter, we laid the first great stone of our foundation. We learned the discipline of thinking with purpose. We made the conscious shift from being a passive floater in the river of reaction to becoming the deliberate creator of our own thoughts. We have learned to focus on possibilities, to see the opportunity in adversity, and to keep our gaze fixed on the horizon of our grandest vision. We have, in essence, learned how to prepare the ink and paper for our life's blueprint. But now we must address the most intimate, the most constant, and the most influential aspect of our mental life. It is not enough to simply have a blueprint. We must consider the notes we write in the margins. We must consider the constant commentary that narrates the entire construction process. We must now turn our attention inward and master the single most important conversation you will ever have, the conversation you have with yourself. We are here to explore the profound discipline of the inner dialogue. I want you to consider your mind for a moment. Every architect works with a master builder, the one who takes the blueprints and turns them into a physical structure. Your master builder is your subconscious mind, and it has one extraordinary quality. It does not question the instructions it is given, it simply builds. Your inner dialogue, your self-talk, is the set of instructions you are feeding to your master builder 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now here is the critical question. What instructions are you giving it? For most people, they have no idea. Their inner dialogue is not a conscious act of instruction. It is an unconscious, automatic, and relentless echo chamber. It is the replaying of old tapes, the echoing of old voices, the voice of a critical parent, a skeptical teacher, a past failure. It is a program that was installed long ago, and it has been running on autopilot ever since. The first step in mastering your inner dialogue is to have the courage to simply listen to it. I want you to undertake a simple exercise. For one full day, become a mental scribe. Your only job is to write down the exact phrases your inner voice uses, especially in moments of stress, challenge, or when you are contemplating a new goal. Do not paraphrase. Do not soften the language. Write down the exact words. At the end of the day, you will have a transcript. And for many, this transcript will be a shocking revelation. You will find a critic living in your mind that is harsher, more relentless, and more cruel than any external enemy you could ever imagine. You will see phrases like, "You are so stupid, how could you make that mistake again? You always mess things up, you'll never get this right. Who do you think you are to even try that? You don't have what it takes." Now, look at that list and ask yourself this profound question. Would you ever dare to speak to your best friend, your spouse, or your child the way you speak to yourself? The answer, of course, is no. You would be horrified. You would see it as verbal abuse. And yet this is the dialogue that we allow to echo in the sacred chambers of our own minds day after day. This is the blueprint we are handing to our master builder. And then we wonder why the structure of our life is filled with flaws. This realization is the beginning of wisdom. You cannot change a program until you are aware that it is running. As you listen more closely to this inner conversation, you will begin to recognize that it is not one monolithic voice. It is a constant battle between two distinct and opposing forces. To master your inner dialogue, you must learn to identify these two voices, understand their motivations, and deliberately choose which one to amplify. The first voice is the inner critic. This is the voice of your past. It is the voice of your fears, your accumulated failures, and your limiting beliefs. Its primary motivation is, ironically, to protect you. It wants to keep you safe within the tiny, familiar confines of your comfort zone. And it does this by relentlessly pointing out every possible danger, every potential for embarrassment, every reason why you are not good enough to take the risk. It is the voice of sabotage, masquerading as the voice of safety. The second voice is the inner coach. This is the voice of your future. It is the voice of your potential, your ambition, and your highest self. Its primary motivation is growth. It does not ignore the challenges, but it focuses on your strengths. It does not deny the possibility of failure, but it reminds you of your resilience. It acknowledges your fear, but it encourages you to act anyway. It is the voice of your champion, the voice of the person you are capable of becoming. For most people, the inner critic has a megaphone, and the inner coach has a whisper. They have spent a lifetime listening to the echo chamber of the critic, and its voice has become loud and authoritative. The discipline of the inner dialogue is not to try and kill the critic. That is an impossible and exhausting battle. The critic is a part of your ancient survival wiring. The discipline is to simply and calmly take the megaphone away from the critic and hand it to the coach. It is a conscious choice. When the critic starts its litany of doubt, you're going to fail. You learn to recognize it. You can even say to it, "Thank you for your concern. I appreciate you trying to keep me safe." And then you must deliberately turn to your inner coach and ask a better question. "Okay, coach, what is the game plan? What is the first step?" You are changing the channel in your own mind. You are choosing with discipline to listen to the broadcast of your potential, not the static of your past. Now that we have chosen to listen to the coach, we must give that coach a powerful and effective script. This is the art of deliberate self-talk. It is the conscious programming of your operating system. And it begins with understanding the two most powerful words in the human language. These two words are the master command for your subconscious mind. The words are, "I am." Whatever you attach to the words "I am," your subconscious mind accepts it as a fact and begins to build a reality to match it. The undisciplined mind uses these words to build a prison. "I am so tired. I am not a morning person. I am terrible at public speaking. I am always broke." Your subconscious mind, the faithful builder, hears these commands and says, "Yes, master," and diligently goes about the work of creating a reality where you are tired, bad at speaking, and always broke. The disciplined mind, the architect, uses these words to build a palace. The key is to shift from describing your current reality to declaring your chosen identity. Instead of "I am so tired," you declare, "I am a person of high energy." Instead of "I am terrible at public speaking," you declare, "I am becoming a more confident and effective speaker every day." Notice the subtle but profound difference. You are not lying to yourself. You are giving your master builder a new set of instructions to work towards. You are describing the person you are committed to becoming. The story of Muhammad Ali is the ultimate case study in this principle. He did not say, "I hope to one day be the greatest." He did not say, "I am training to become the greatest." He declared with a conviction that shook the world, "I am the greatest." Was he the champion when he first started saying it? No, but he was installing the identity. He was programming his mind, his body, and his spirit to operate as if he already were the champion. And his reality eventually reorganized itself around his dominant, disciplined thought. This is the power of creative, purposeful self-talk. You must speak of your future as if it were your present, and of your potential as if it were your reality. The ultimate test of your inner dialogue comes not on the sunny days, but in the midst of the storms. How do you speak to yourself when you fail, when you are rejected, when your brilliant plan crumbles into dust? This is the moment where the architect's true character is revealed. The undisciplined mind, dominated by the inner critic, uses failure as proof of its own negative programming. The critic screams, "See, I told you you weren't good enough." This is the proof. You should just give up now and save yourself the embarrassment. This is the dialogue of defeat. The disciplined mind, guided by the inner coach, has a pre-planned script for failure. It treats failure not as a verdict, but as a data point. The coach's narrative of failure sounds like this. "Interesting. That approach did not produce the desired result. What valuable data have we just acquired? What is the one crucial lesson we have learned from this that will make our next attempt more successful?" This is not the end of the story, this is a plot twist. Let's get back to the drawing board. Do you see the immense difference? The critic's dialogue leads to shame and surrender. The coach's dialogue leads to learning and resilience. You must decide in advance, how you will talk to yourself when you fail. The architect knows that during construction, some walls will crack, some materials will be faulty. They do not see this as a reflection of their worth as an architect. They see it as a construction problem to be analyzed and solved. You must adopt this same detached, professional, solution-oriented dialogue for your own life. This new way of speaking to yourself will not become a habit by accident. The old negative programming has been running for decades. To overwrite it, you must install the new program with deliberate, daily, focused repetition. You must build an architecture of affirmation. This is your daily practice. It is non-negotiable. It begins with the morning briefing. The first few moments upon waking are when the soil of your subconscious mind is most fertile. Before you allow the chaos of the world to rush in through your phone, you must conduct a 5-minute briefing with your master builder. You review the blueprint. You read your goals. You speak your affirmations aloud with energy and emotion. You are setting the tone for the entire day. You are giving the clear, positive, and empowering instructions for the work ahead. It continues throughout the day with conscious correction. As you go about your day, you will catch the inner critic trying to run its old negative program. Your job is to be the vigilant programmer who catches the bug in the code. When you hear it, you pause, you delete the negative line of code, and you consciously type in the new, empowering one. And it ends with the evening review. Before you sleep, you conduct a final 2-minute review. But this is not a review of your failures and worries. It is a review of your wins. You ask yourself, what went well today? Where did I keep a promise to myself? What am I grateful for? This programs your subconscious to look for the positive, and it allows you to end the day in a state of gratitude and accomplishment, priming the soil for another good planting in the morning. And so, we see that our inner dialogue is not just idle chatter. It is the most powerful creative force in our lives. It is the operating system for our success. It is the voice that is constantly whispering instructions to the vast, powerful, and obedient servant that is our subconscious mind. We have learned to move from being an unconscious victim of our inner echo chamber to becoming the conscious, deliberate programmer of our own mind. We have learned to identify the two voices of the critic and the coach, and to deliberately hand the megaphone to the coach. We have learned the language of creation, understanding the immense power of the words I am. And we have developed a daily architecture of affirmation to install this new programming until it becomes our default state. You have now mastered the inner conversation. You have learned to write the notes on your blueprint with the language of a champion. The design in your mind is now clear, and the instructions for the builder are empowering. The next logical step for the architect is to communicate this brilliant vision to the outside world, to attract the resources, the people, and the opportunities needed to bring it to life. Sand. In our journey so far, we have done the profound work of the architect. We have learned to think with purpose, to draft the grand blueprint of our lives. We have then learned to master our inner dialogue, to write the empowering instructions for our master builder, the subconscious mind. The blueprint is clear. The instructions are written, and here we arrive at a crucial junction, the place where many aspiring architects fail. It is one thing to have a brilliant plan. It is one thing to write a powerful mission statement. It is another thing entirely to live that plan, to embody that statement day after day in the face of the relentless chaos and friction of the real world. A blueprint that stays on the shelf builds nothing. A powerful inner dialogue that is silenced by the noise of the world is a wasted potential. This brings us to the discipline that bridges the gap between idea and identity. It is the discipline that turns a good intention into a lived reality. We must now master the daily choice of mindset. I want you to consider that each day is a miniature lifetime. It has its birth, which is the moment you wake. It has its life, the 16 or so hours of activity. And it has its death, the moment you fall asleep. The profound truth is that the quality of your life will be nothing more than the sum quality of your days. If you win the day, you will win the week. If you win the week, you will win the year. And if you win the year, you will win your life. Therefore, the most important battle you will ever fight is the one that takes place in the first hour of each morning. In this hour, two paths diverge, and the path you choose will set the trajectory for everything that follows. The first path is the path of default. This is the path the majority of the world takes. It begins not with a conscious choice, but with a jarring reaction to an alarm clock. The first action is to reach for the phone, and in that single seemingly innocent act, the battle is lost. You are immediately inviting an army of distractions and demands into the sacred space of your mind. You are flooded with the urgent emails of others, the curated highlight reels of social media that breed comparison, and the litany of bad news from around the world. The person on the path of default starts their day not as a creator, but as a reactor. They have immediately handed the keys to their emotional and mental state over to the world. Their blueprint for the day is not their own. It is a chaotic to-do list written by 1,000 external sources. Then there is the second path. This is the path of the architect, the path of the winner. This is the path of design. The person on this path understands that the first hour of the day is a sacred, protected period. It is the victory hour. It is the time when they deliberately and consciously set the tone for the day they intend to create. They do not react to the world, they prepare themselves to impose their will upon the world. They do not consume, they create. They do not drift, they steer. This is the first and most important choice of your day. Will you begin on the path of default or on the path of design? Will you be a reactor or an architect? Your answer to that question will determine the quality of your day and ultimately the quality of your life. So what does it mean to walk the path of design? It means creating a morning ritual, a victory hour that is non-negotiable. This is not about adding more stress to your morning. It is about creating a structure that eliminates stress and builds power. This ritual is built upon 4 foundational pillars. Before the architect demands anything of the day, they first give thanks for the opportunity to build. The first act of a designed morning is not to think about what is missing, but to acknowledge what is present. The discipline is gratitude. Before your feet even touch the floor, before you have allowed a single worry about the day ahead to enter your mind, you must take 60 seconds to think of 3 distinct things you are truly grateful for. It could be the warmth of the bed. It could be the health of your family. It could be the opportunity that a new day represents. Why is this so powerful? You cannot be in a state of gratitude and a state of fear or anxiety at the same time. They are mutually exclusive frequencies. Gratitude is the act of consciously tuning your mind to the frequency of abundance, of possibility, of positivity. You are setting your mental and emotional thermostat for the day. You wouldn't start a symphony with a chaotic, jarring noise. You start with the conductor bringing all the instruments into harmony. Gratitude is the tuning fork for a winning mindset. The architect of life understands that the mind and body are not 2 separate entities. They are one integrated system. A brilliant mind housed in a lethargic, neglected body is like a powerful engine with no fuel. The second pillar is movement. This does not necessarily mean a grueling, hour-long workout. It simply means you must ignite your physical engine. It could be 7 minutes of stretching. It could be a brisk 15-minute walk outside. It could be a set of push-ups and squats. The purpose of morning movement is not just physical fitness. It is to change your physiology to support a peak psychology. It floods your brain with oxygen and endorphins. It shakes off the grogginess of sleep. It sends a powerful signal to your body and mind that says, we are awake, we are energized, we are ready to build. Now that your mind is tuned and your body is ignited, the architect must review the plans for the day. The third pillar is clarity. This is where you spend a few focused minutes reconnecting with your grand design. You read your major goals. You look at the goal card we have spoken of. You review your most important project for the week. You ask yourself the most important management question of all. What is the one most important thing I must accomplish today to move my blueprint forward? This is the act of setting your intention. The person on the path of default is a ship without a rudder, pushed about by the winds of the day. You, the architect, are now setting your rudder before you even leave the harbor. You are defining what a win looks like for your day. This clarity prevents you from getting lost in the tyranny of the urgent. and ensures you invest your best energy in what is truly important. Finally, the master architect knows that they must constantly be learning. The fourth pillar is to feed your mind. The person on the path of default feeds their mind the junk food of social media and negative news. The person on the path of design chooses to consume high-quality, nutritious fuel. This is the discipline of reading just 10 pages of a good nonfiction book, or listening to 15 minutes of an educational, inspiring podcast or audio program. It is a small act, but the cumulative effect is staggering. By starting your day with a powerful, positive, and educational input, you are setting a trajectory of growth. You are one idea smarter, one step wiser than you were when you woke up. You are signaling to your mind that today is a day for growth, not stagnation. These four pillars, gratitude, movement, clarity, and learning, are the foundation of a designed morning. They may take 30 minutes, they may take an hour, but this victory hour is the highest leverage activity you can possibly engage in. It is the investment that pays the greatest dividends for the rest of your day. A powerful morning routine is a magnificent thing, but its true test comes at 9 a.m. when the first crisis hits, the first difficult email arrives, the first unexpected challenge appears. A mindset that is only strong in the quiet of the morning is a fragile mindset. Your morning routine does not just give you a good start. It forges what I call a shield of intention. It is a psychological and emotional armor that you carry with you throughout the day. Your discipline, then, is to maintain that shield. How? By practicing the art of the micro reset. The day will inevitably try to pull you back into the river of reaction. You will feel your mood sour. You will feel your focus scatter. You will feel the pull of negativity. In these moments, the amateur succumbs. The professional resets. A micro reset takes 60 seconds. You excuse yourself, go to a quiet place, and perform a miniature version of your morning routine. You take 3 deep breaths, priming the body. You think of one thing you are grateful for in that moment, priming the mind. You glance at your goal card or simply ask, what is my most important task right now? Priming the purpose. This simple act is a conscious choice to re-engage your winning mindset. It is a refusal to let a single bad moment turn into a bad day. It is the architect stepping away from a minor construction problem, looking at the main blueprint again, and then returning to the problem with renewed clarity and purpose. A day is not one in one glorious moment in the morning. It is one in the dozen small moments throughout the day where you choose to reset and realign with your intention. This daily choice of mindset is the operating system that runs all the other disciplines we have discussed. It is the context within which your inner dialogue takes place. Let's see how this works in practice. A challenge arises. A major project is delayed. The mind on the path of default, a mind that started the day with chaos, immediately activates the inner critic. The dialogue is predictable. This is a disaster. I knew this would happen. Everything is going wrong. This is too stressful. The emotional response is frustration and panic. The action is frantic, reactive, and often counterproductive. The mind on the path of design, a mind that started the day with a chosen mindset of gratitude and purpose, has a different response. It acknowledges the challenge. It feels the initial sting of frustration. But then, the chosen mindset kicks in. It activates the inner coach. The dialogue is strategic. Okay, this is a challenge. My chosen mindset for today is to be solution-focused. This is not a problem. This is a project. What is the next constructive action I can take to get this back on track? The emotional response is calm, focused, and resilient. The action is deliberate, thoughtful, and effective. The event was the same. The mindset was the difference. And the difference in mindset created a completely different outcome. You do not control the events of your life. But by choosing your mindset every day, you gain profound influence over your response to those events. And your response is what creates your future. And so, we see that a winning mindset is not a personality trait you are born with. It is not a matter of luck. It is a conscious, disciplined choice that you must make every single day. It begins with the fundamental choice between a day of default and a day of design. It is built upon the 4 pillars of a victory hour, priming your mind, your body, your purpose, and your knowledge. It is sustained throughout the day by the practice of the micro reset. the shield of intention that you carry with you into the battles of the day. And it is the foundation that determines whether your inner dialogue will be one of a victim or one of a creator. The architect who masters the design of his day, every day, will inevitably build a masterpiece of a life. The discipline is simple, but it is not easy. It requires you to value your own future more than you value the comfort of your morning routine. It requires you to be the leader of your own life before you have even had your first cup of coffee. You have now learned to think with purpose and to master the inner conversation. And now you have learned how to make that mastery a daily, unbreakable habit. The architect's mind is now fully prepared. The blueprint is clear, the instructions are empowering, and the daily commitment is in place. The next logical step for the architect is to communicate this brilliant vision to the outside world, to attract the resources and the support needed to bring it to life. It is now time to master the discipline of the voice, the discipline of communication. We have now completed the design phase. We have mastered the internal world of the architect, the blueprint of our thoughts, and the voice of our communication. The foundation is set, and the vision is clear. Before we step onto the construction site and begin the great work of action, I want to invite you to take a moment with me. If this journey into the architecture of the mind has been of value to you, if it has provided even one tool to help you design a better life, then I encourage you to become a permanent member of our construction crew. Take a moment now to subscribe to this channel. By doing so, you are not just clicking a button, you are joining a community of fellow architects, all committed to the discipline of building a life by design, not by default. You ensure that this important conversation can continue. Now let us roll up our sleeves. It is time to build. In our last session, we did the profound and private work of the architect. We journeyed deep into the inner world, into the quiet workshop of the mind. We learned the discipline of thinking with purpose, of mastering our inner dialogue, and of choosing our mindset every single morning. The blueprint for your masterpiece is now designed. It is clear, it is powerful, and it exists, perfectly formed in the sanctuary of your own mind. But a blueprint, no matter how magnificent, if it remains locked in the architect's office, will never become a cathedral. A vision, no matter how vivid, if it remains a private secret, will never change the world. The first great act of bringing the invisible into the visible, of translating thought into reality, is the act of speech. It is the moment the architect gives a voice to the vision. This brings us to our next great pillar of a winner's mindset, the discipline of communication. And it begins with the most foundational element of all. We must master the language of certainty. I want you to consider a profound idea. Your words are not descriptive, they are creative. The average person believes that language is a tool used to describe the world as it is. They see a situation and they use their words to report on it. The economy is bad. This project is difficult. I am not very confident. They are using their language as a mirror, simply reflecting their current circumstances. The winner, the architect of life, understands a deeper truth. Language is not a mirror, it is a hammer. It is a creative tool used to shape the world into what it ought to be. Your words are the building blocks of your reality. With every sentence you speak, you are either constructing the palace of your dreams or reinforcing the walls of your own prison. Think of the materials used in construction. An architect can design a skyscraper, but if the builders use flimsy wood and brittle plaster, the structure will collapse. The same is true for the life you are building. Your vision, your blueprint, may be a towering skyscraper, but if you are attempting to build it with the flimsy, brittle language of mediocrity, it is destined to fail. What is this weak language? You hear it every day. You may even be using it yourself. It is the language of self-protection, the vocabulary of the person who is preparing to fail. Let us now enter the workshop and examine these materials. We must have the courage to identify the weak materials so we can banish them from our construction site forever. There are certain words that are the termites of achievement. They seem small and harmless, but they will eat away at the foundation of your ambition until the entire structure collapses. The first and most common of these words is try. I will try to finish the report. I will try to get to the gym. On the surface, It sounds like a reasonable commitment. But what does it truly communicate? The word try is the sound of a person who has already negotiated the terms of their own surrender. It is a pre-made excuse. It says, I will give it some effort, but if it becomes difficult, I have already given myself permission to quit. The winner does not try. As the great philosopher Yoda said, do or do not. There is no try. The winner commits. The winner does. You must banish the word try from your vocabulary when speaking of your goals. The second weak material is the word hope. I hope I get the promotion. I hope the business succeeds. Hope is a beautiful pillow for a person who is resting, but it is a terrible tool for a person who is building. Hope is passive. It defers power to external forces, to luck, to chance, to the decisions of others. It is the language of the lottery ticket player, not the architect. The winner does not operate on hope. They operate on intention and action. They do not hope for a result, they work to create it. Replace the passivity of hope with the active power of commitment. The third set of weak materials are the words of hesitation. Maybe, probably, I'm not sure. These words are the language of the spectator, not the player on the field. They signal to your own mind and to the world that you are not fully committed, that your belief is fragile. And the final, most imprisoning word of all, is the word can't. I can't start a business. I can't learn that new skill. The word can't is the sound of a key turning in the lock of a self-imposed prison cell. It is the premature declaration of defeat. The winner knows that the question is never can I. The only question is how will I. You must become a vigilant guardian of your own mouth. You must inspect every word before you let it pass your lips. Is this a word that builds or a word that destroys? Is this the language of an architect or the language of a tenant? Now, why is this so critically important? Is it just a game of positive thinking? No, it is far deeper than that. This is about understanding the physics of how your mind operates. Let us revisit the idea of your subconscious mind as the master builder. Your subconscious is incredibly powerful, but it is not a discerning intellectual. It does not understand sarcasm, irony, or your good intentions. It takes your words as literal, direct commands. It is the fertile soil of your garden that will grow whatever seed you plant in it without question. When you say, I will try to get up early, the seed you are planting is the seed of optionality and potential failure. Your subconscious builder receives the instruction, early rising is not a firm commitment, prepare for the probability of hitting the snooze button. When you say, with a different, disciplined voice, I will wake up at 6 a.m., you are planting a different seed. You are giving a direct, non-negotiable command. Your subconscious builder receives the instruction. Mandatory command received. All systems will be oriented toward a 6 a.m. wake up. This is the internal effect. But there is also a powerful external effect. Your brain contains a remarkable filtering system known as the reticular activating system, or RAS. Its job is to filter the billions of bits of data bombarding you every second and only show you what it deems important. And how does it know what's important? It listens to what you are thinking and saying. When you start speaking with the language of certainty about your goals, you are programming your own filtering system. When you say, I will find the right mentor for my business, you are instructing your RAS to scan your environment for potential mentors. Suddenly, you will start noticing people, articles, and conversations that you were completely blind to before. They were always there, but your filter was not programmed to see them. This is why the rich seem to get richer and the successful seem to attract more opportunities. It is not magic. They have programmed their minds through the disciplined use of language to see the opportunities that the average person with their filter programmed for problems and scarcity simply cannot see. Let us now go deeper into the most powerful phrase of creative action, I will. This phrase is more than just a statement of intent. When spoken with conviction, the phrase I will is the signing of a sacred contract with yourself. It is an act of personal integrity. Consider the nature of a contract. It is a binding promise. A person who is known for keeping their contracts is a person of high integrity. They are trustworthy. They have a good reputation. Now, apply that to your internal world. Every time you say I will and then you follow through with the corresponding action, you are building a reputation for integrity with yourself. You are proving to yourself that you are a person who can be trusted. And this is the absolute foundation of all genuine self-esteem and self-belief. Conversely, the person who constantly says, I'll try or I should, and then fails to act is constantly breaking contracts with themselves. Their inner world is one of broken promises. How can such a person ever develop true self-confidence? They cannot, for they know on the deepest level that they cannot even trust themselves. The discipline of the I will mandate is about becoming a person of your word, first and foremost to yourself. The great general who, after landing his army on an enemy shore, gave the command to burn the boats, understood this principle perfectly. By removing the option of retreat, he removed the language of, we will try to win. He created a situation where the only language possible was, we will win. He created a state of total commitment. Every time you replace the weak word try with the powerful declaration I will, you are burning your own boats of doubt and indecision. You are committing yourself to the goal, not just to the attempt. As you master the I will mandate for your future actions, you can then ascend to an even higher level of creative language. This is the discipline of speaking of your desired reality in the present tense. This is not about lying or delusion. This is about understanding that to achieve a new reality, you must first adopt the identity of the person who lives in that reality. You must begin to think, act, and speak from your future self now. There is a subtle but profound difference between these two statements. Statement A, I am working hard every day so that one day I can become a successful author. Statement B, I am a successful author. Statement A describes the struggle. It affirms the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Statement B declares the identity. It closes the gap. When you have the courage to speak from the identity you are committed to building, a remarkable thing happens. Your entire being begins to align with that declaration. Your posture changes. Your decision-making changes. Your actions begin to match your words. You are not faking it until you make it. You are living it until you become it. You are being the architect who walks onto the empty construction site and speaks with the absolute authority and knowledge of the finished cathedral because he can see it so clearly in his mind. When someone asks what you do not describe your mundane daily tasks. You describe your mission. You speak from the blueprint. Finally, this disciplined language becomes your shield and your magnet in the external world. When you speak with certainty, you are doing more than just conveying information. You are transferring a feeling. You are transferring belief. In a world filled with uncertainty, doubt, and hesitation, the person who speaks with calm, reasoned certainty is a magnetic force. People are drawn to clarity. People are drawn to conviction. A leader's primary job is the transfer of belief to their team. An entrepreneur's primary job is the transfer of belief to their investors and customers. A parent's primary job is the transfer of belief to their child. This is impossible if your own language is riddled with the termites of doubt. Consider how the person of certainty handles questions from a skeptical world. The skeptic asks, but what if your business fails? The uncertain mind says, well, I hope it doesn't. We'll try our best to avoid that. The certain mind says, then we will learn what didn't work, adjust our approach, and continue until it does. The only variable is the timeline, not the outcome. Do you feel the difference? It is a difference in energy, in power, and in authority. The certain mind is not defensive, it is prepared. It has already made the decision for success, and it speaks from that decision. And so, we see that the discipline of communication, beginning with the language of certainty, is the first great act of creation. It is the bridge from the invisible world of your blueprint to the visible world of your reality. We have learned that words are creative tools, not just descriptive mirrors. We have identified and banished the vocabulary of mediocrity. We have understood the physics of speech, how our words program our own minds. We have embraced the I will mandate as a sacred contract with ourselves. And we have learned to speak from our future identity, using the present tense prophecy. You must become the master of your own language. You must be the architect who speaks of his magnificent, finished cathedral with absolute conviction, even while standing on an empty plot of land. Because it is that very conviction, expressed through disciplined language, that will call forth the builders, attract the resources, and command the reality to bend to your will. You have now learned to speak with the voice of the architect. But this powerful voice must be tempered with wisdom and humility, lest it become the voice of arrogance. And that brings us to our next crucial distinction: the difference between the winner's true confidence and the insecure person's loud bravado. We must now master the discipline of confidence versus arrogance. In our last chapter, we forged the powerful tool of the language of certainty. We learned to speak with a voice of conviction, to use words not as mirrors of our current reality, but as hammers to shape our future reality. We have embraced the power of I will and the prophecy of I am. This is a powerful tool. And any powerful tool in the hands of a craftsman can be used to build a masterpiece. But that same sharp tool in the hands of a fool can be used to cause great damage, both to the project and to the builder himself. The powerful voice of certainty can manifest in one of two ways. It can radiate as the quiet, attractive, and inspiring glow of confidence. Or it can broadcast as the loud, repulsive, and destructive noise of arrogance. The winner, the master architect of life, must understand the profound difference between these two forces. To confuse them is a fatal error in the construction of a well-lived life. This brings us to our next crucial discipline. We must learn to distinguish between and deliberately cultivate confidence versus arrogance. To begin, let us consider a simple parable, the tale of two architects, both tasked with building a magnificent cathedral. The first architect is a man of great talent and even greater noise. He walks onto the construction site and announces his own genius. He dismisses the ideas of the experienced stonemasons and carpenters, believing his vision is infallible. He speaks constantly of the grand monument he is creating, a monument to his own brilliance. The work is all about him. This is the architect of arrogance. The second architect is a woman of equal talent, but of a different spirit. She walks onto the site with a quiet intensity. She spends her time not talking, but listening. She listens to the stone, to the wood, to the wisdom of the craftsmen who have worked with these materials their entire lives. She is obsessed not with her own glory, but with the integrity of the structure. She believes the cathedral is a monument not to her, but to a higher purpose it is meant to serve. This is the architect of confidence. Which of these two do you believe will build a cathedral that stands for 1,000 years? Confidence builds bridges to others. Arrogance builds walls around the self. This entire chapter is about learning to become a bridge builder. To understand the difference, we must not look at the surface behaviors, but at the deep hidden roots from which these two traits grow. The root of arrogance is insecurity. Arrogance is not a sign of strength. It is a symptom of a deep inner weakness. It is a loud, desperate, and exhausting performance staged by someone who is terrified of being discovered as a fraud. It is a mask worn to hide a fragile ego. The arrogant person needs a constant audience, a constant stream of external validation to reassure themselves of a worth they do not feel internally. Their sense of self is a hollow balloon, and they must constantly seek the hot air of praise from others to keep it inflated. The root of confidence, on the other hand, is evidence-based self-belief. True confidence is not a performance. It is a quiet state of being. It is the natural result of a long, private history of keeping promises to yourself. It is the reputation you have built with the person in the mirror. It is the calm assurance that comes not from telling people you are capable, but from showing yourself time and time again that you are. The confident person does not need an audience. Their strength is internal. It is just as potent in a silent, empty room as it is on a grand stage. Arrogance is a desperate cry for attention. Confidence is a quiet hum of capability. Once you understand the roots, you can begin to recognize the fruits. How do these two traits manifest in the real world? You must become a keen observer, first of others, and more importantly of yourself. Let us examine them in 3 common scenarios. First, in conversation. Arrogance talks at you. Its primary goal is to broadcast its own knowledge and prove its own rightness. It dominates. It interrupts. It is not listening to what you are saying. It is merely waiting for its turn to speak. Confidence, however, converses with you. Its primary goal is not to be right, but to get it right, together. It listens with genuine curiosity. It asks clarifying questions. It is perfectly comfortable saying the 3 most powerful words in a leader's vocabulary. I don't know. Second, in the face of a mistake or failure, arrogance cannot tolerate being wrong. A mistake is a direct threat to its fragile, inflated ego. And so, it denies, it deflects, and it blames. It wasn't my fault. The instructions were unclear. The team didn't execute properly. It will do anything to protect its illusion of perfection. Confidence, however, treats a mistake as an asset. It has the strength to own it. The confident person can say, I made a mistake. Here is what I have learned from it. And here is my plan to fix it. For them, a mistake is not a verdict on their worth. It is simply a data point, an opportunity for growth and improvement. And third, in the presence of others' success. Arrogance is threatened by the success of others. It lives in a world of scarcity, believing that another's light diminishes its own, and so it criticizes, it minimizes, it finds the flaw in the other person's achievement. Oh, they just got lucky. Well, their work isn't that good. Confidence, on the other hand, is inspired by the success of others. It lives in a world of abundance, believing that a rising tide lifts all ships. It celebrates, it congratulates, and most importantly, it studies. The confident person asks, that is a magnificent achievement. How did they do it? What can I learn from them? You must use this guide to diagnose your own behaviors. Are you a bridge builder or a wall builder? So, if arrogance is the weed and confidence is the prize-winning rose, how do we deliberately cultivate one and starve the other? It is done through a set of conscious daily disciplines. Discipline number 1, the relentless pursuit of competence. Authentic confidence is always a byproduct of competence. You cannot trick yourself into feeling confident about a skill you do not possess. You must earn it. This is done through preparation and practice. Consider the public speaker. The arrogant speaker walks on stage unprepared, relying on bluster and charisma to carry them through. Their performance is a house of cards. The confident speaker has spent 100 hours preparing for that 1-hour speech. They have researched, written, practiced, and refined. Their confidence comes not from a belief in their natural talent, but from the undeniable evidence of their preparation. If you wish to be more confident, the path is simple. Get better. Do the work. Put in the hours when no one is watching. Confidence is the reward you get for doing the hard work in private. Discipline number 2, the practice of intentional humility. The world misunderstands humility. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. Arrogance is obsessed with the self. How do I look? What do they think of me? How can I win? The discipline of humility is to shift your focus from yourself to the mission. It is the practice of asking different questions. How can we achieve the goal? What is the best idea in the room, regardless of whose it is? How can I serve the purpose of this project? The humble architect is the one who is willing to learn from the master stonemason. The humble leader is the one who gives the credit to their team. This shift from self-obsession to mission obsession is the most powerful antidote to arrogance. Discipline, number 3, the commitment to contribution. A core driver of arrogance is the need to prove one's worth. The discipline that dissolves this need is the commitment to contribution. When your primary focus shifts from what can I get to what can I give, your ego naturally takes a back seat. The architect who is obsessed with how much value they can provide to the client, how much beauty they can contribute to the city skyline, how much utility they can create for the people who will use the building, has no time for the petty insecurities of arrogance. Your confidence will become unshakable when it is rooted not in your own accomplishments, but in your dedication to serving others. This entire battle between confidence and arrogance is won or lost in the quiet chambers of your own mind. It is a reflection of your inner dialogue. The inner dialogue of arrogance is a constant, high-pressure performance. I have to be the best. I cannot show any weakness. I must prove them all wrong. It is a dialogue driven by fear and a need for external validation. It is exhausting. The inner dialogue of confidence is a calm, centered conversation of capability. I am prepared for this challenge. I have done the work. I have the skills to handle what comes my way. My worth is not on the line in this moment. The successful completion of the mission is. If I encounter something I don't know, I have the capacity to learn it. It is a dialogue of trust, of resilience, and of self-respect. You must listen to your own self-talk. Is it the frantic voice of an insecure performer or the calm voice of a prepared professional? And so, we see the profound and critical distinction. Arrogance is a loud, fragile, and empty fortress. Confidence is a quiet, resilient, and deeply rooted temple. We have dissected the insecure roots of arrogance and the evidence-based roots of confidence. We have learned the telltale signs to diagnose them in ourselves and in others, and we have laid out a clear, disciplined path to cultivating authentic confidence. Through the relentless pursuit of competence, the practice of intentional humility, and the commitment to contribution, let us return to our two architects. The arrogant architect may build a flashy, impressive-looking structure, but it is often built on a shallow foundation, with shoddy materials hidden behind a beautiful facade. It is a monument to ego, and like all things built on ego, it is fragile. The confident architect builds more slowly, more deliberately. They are obsessed with the depth of the foundation, with the integrity of the materials, with the quality of the craftsmanship. Their masterpiece may not be the flashiest, but it is the one that is built to last. It is a monument to excellence. You have now learned to temper the powerful voice of certainty with the quiet strength of true confidence. You have the blueprint in your mind, and you now have the voice to communicate it with both power and grace. The architect is now fully prepared to move from design and communication to the most crucial phase of all, the actual physical construction. In our journey through this second great pillar, the discipline of communication, we have accomplished two essential tasks. First, we have forged the language of certainty, learning to speak with a voice of conviction that programs our own minds and signals our intent to the world. Second, we have navigated the crucial distinction between confidence and arrogance, ensuring that our powerful voice is rooted in the quiet strength of self-belief, not the noisy insecurity of the ego. We now have a confident architect, speaking with a certain voice, but a powerful voice, speaking with conviction. If the message itself is muddled, confused, or vague, what does it create? It creates confident confusion. It creates certain chaos. Confidence without clarity is like a powerful, unfocused beam of light. It generates a lot of heat and glow, but it illuminates nothing. To be truly effective, to actually build the cathedral from the blueprint, the architect must learn to focus that beam. They must learn to communicate their vision with such crystalline precision that it can be perfectly understood, embraced, and executed. This brings us to the final and crowning discipline of communication. We must now master the power of clarity. I want you to consider that most failures in life, in business, in relationships, in personal projects, are not failures of effort. They are not failures of intention. They are failures of clarity. Ambiguity is the silent killer of dreams. It is a thick, dense fog that rolls into a construction site, causing workers to slow down, to become confused, to lose their direction, and ultimately to stop working altogether. Where does this fog come from? It comes from vague intentions, from unspoken expectations, from muddled communication, and from unclear thinking. The undisciplined mind lives in a perpetual state of this fog. I want to be more successful. What does that mean? We need to improve our sales. How specifically? By when? I wish our relationship were better. In what way? What needs to change? These are not goals, they are clouds. They have no sharp edges, no clear form, no actionable direction. The master architect, the winner, is a warrior against the fog. They understand that clarity is a functional necessity for success. It is not an aesthetic choice. It is the solvent that dissolves confusion and the lubricant that enables swift, coordinated action. A clear vision, communicated clearly, is the most powerful leadership tool on the planet. Here is the first and most important commandment of clear communication. You cannot communicate clearly to others that which is not first absolutely clear to you. Unclear speech is almost always a symptom of unclear thinking. When you hear a person ramble, use jargon to hide their lack of substance, or talk in circles, you are not witnessing a communication problem. You are witnessing a thinking problem. They haven't done the hard private work of wrestling with their own ideas until they are simple and clear. Therefore, the discipline of clarity begins long before you ever open your mouth. It begins in the quiet room of your own mind. It is the discipline of pre-thinking. Before any important communication, a major presentation, a critical meeting, an important family conversation, even a crucial email, the master communicator does not just rush in, they pause. They become the architect reviewing the blueprint, and they ask themselves three simple but profound questions. First, what is the single most important outcome I want to achieve with this communication? If at the end of this I could only have one thing happen, what would it be? This defines your why. Second, what is the one core message the other person must understand to make that outcome a reality? Not 10 messages, one. What is the central pillar upon which the entire structure of my communication rests? This defines your what. And third, how do I want the other person to feel, and what specifically do I want them to do after I have finished speaking? This defines your how. This simple 3-minute exercise is the act of aiming. The amateur communicator just shoots their arrows in the general direction of the target and hopes one of them hits. The master communicator takes the time to aim at the bullseye. The hard work of clarity is done before the first word is ever spoken. Once your thinking is clear, you must then have the discipline to deliver your message with that same clarity. And here we encounter a great paradox. In a world that is increasingly complex, the person who is most persuasive is the person who is most simple. The amateur, in an effort to sound intelligent and impressive, often does the opposite. They use complex jargon, they build long, convoluted sentences, and they bury their one good idea under a mountain of unnecessary words. This does not signal intelligence, it signals insecurity. They are using complexity as a smokescreen to hide the fact that their own thinking may not be as clear as it should be. The master, the winner, understands a profound truth. True genius is not the ability to make a simple thing sound complicated. It is the ability to make a complicated thing sound simple. This requires the discipline of subtraction. It is the art of cutting away everything that is not essential until only the powerful, resonant core of the message remains. How do you practice this? First, you learn to speak in headlines. Give the main point first. The project is behind schedule, and here is my plan to fix it. Do not spend 10 minutes telling a long chronological story that eventually leads to the point. Deliver the headline. The details can follow if and only if they are requested. Second, you embrace the rule of 3. The human mind is naturally attuned to patterns, and the most powerful and memorable pattern is 3. If you have a series of points to make, group them into 3s. There are 3 key reasons for this change. Our strategy has 3 phases. We need to focus on 3 priorities. This simple structure brings instant clarity and order to even the most complex subjects. Third, you must eliminate the termites of your language, the filler words. Words like ah, like, and kind of are the sound of uncertainty. They are like small cracks in the foundation of your message. They leak power. They leak credibility. You must train yourself to replace these filler words with a tool of immense power, the pause. A moment of silence is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of confidence. It gives your words weight. It gives your listener a moment to absorb your last point. It signals that you are in control. Clarity is not about how much you can say. It is about how much your audience can understand. Now, we must understand that the words you speak are only a small fraction of the message you are sending. The architect knows that the beauty of a building is not just in its blueprint, but in its physical presence. The way it occupies space, the way it feels to stand before it. Your physical presence, your body language, is the emotional and psychological container for your words. If your words are clear, but your presence is uncertain, the message will be lost. Your silent language must be in absolute alignment with your spoken language. There are 4 pillars to a clear and confident presence. First is your posture. How do you occupy your space? The person of clarity stands and sits tall with their shoulders back. They are not aggressive, but they are present. They are not shrinking from the world, they are engaging with it. It is the posture of an architect, not an apprentice. Second is your eye contact. The eyes are, as they say, the windows to the soul. But in communication, they are the windows to your conviction. Clear, steady eye contact does not mean an intimidating stare. It means a genuine connection. It signals that you believe the words you are saying and that you respect the person you are saying them to. Third is your voice tonality. It is not just the words you say, but the music you play with them. A clear message delivered in a flat, monotone voice will put an audience to sleep. A confident communicator uses their voice as an instrument. They vary their pace, their volume, and their pitch to add emphasis and emotion. They speak from their diaphragm, giving their voice a resonance and authority that a thin, reedy voice from the throat can never achieve. And fourth is the mastery of stillness. A nervous, unclear person fidgets. Their hands are constantly moving. Their body is a portrait of restless energy. A clear, confident person is comfortable with stillness. Their gestures are purposeful and deliberate, used to emphasize a point, not to burn off nervous energy. The pause, as we mentioned, is the ultimate tool of the still and confident communicator. Your body's broadcasting a message every second. The master communicator ensures that this broadcast is in perfect harmony with the words they are speaking. Here we arrive at the final and most paradoxical secret of clear communication. The clearest communicators are almost always the most disciplined listeners. The amateur, the arrogant mind, believes that communication is all about broadcasting. They do not listen to what the other person is saying. They are simply reloading, waiting for their turn to talk again. The master, the winner, understands that communication is a two-way street. It is a dance. And the first step in any great dance is to understand your partner. Active listening is the ultimate tool for achieving clarity. Why? Because by listening intently, by asking clarifying questions, by truly seeking to understand the other person's perspective, their needs, and their concerns, you gather the critical intelligence you need. This allows you to tailor your message, to shape your words, to build your argument in a way that will be maximally clear and persuasive to them. Furthermore, the act of deep listening is an act of profound respect. When a person feels truly heard and understood, their defenses lower, their mind opens. They become dramatically more receptive to the message you have to deliver. The master architect does not just arrive at a site and start building based on their own brilliant ideas. They first study the landscape, they analyze the soil conditions, they understand the surrounding environment. Listening is the act of studying the landscape of the other person's mind before you attempt to build a bridge to it. If you want to be understood, first seek to understand. And so we see that clarity is not a gift that some are born with. It is a discipline. It is a craft that is built layer by layer. It begins with the internal discipline of pre-thinking, refusing to speak until your own thoughts are clear. It is expressed through the art of simplicity, understanding that true genius is the ability to make the complex simple. It is amplified by the silent language of a confident and congruent physical presence. And it is made profoundly effective by the wisdom of disciplined listening, the other half of true communication. The architect whose vision is crystal clear can communicate it with such precision that the entire construction team, their employees, their investors, their family, the world sees the exact same cathedral in their minds. There is no confusion. There is no wasted effort. There is only aligned, purposeful action. You are now fully equipped as the architect of your life. You have the blueprint of thought, and you have the voice of communication to articulate it with certainty, confidence, and clarity. The design phase is complete. The communication of that design is now mastered. The time for theory is over. Now, the architect must walk onto the construction site, roll up their sleeves, and begin the most crucial phase of all, the actual physical construction. It is now time to master the discipline of the work, the discipline of action. In our journey so far, we have laid the internal foundations of a winner's mindset. We have learned to be the architect of our thoughts, to speak with the voice of confidence and clarity. The design phase is complete. The communication is clear. The time for theory is now over. We now step out of the quiet architect's office and onto the vast, open construction site that is your life. We are here to begin the work. We are here to master the discipline of action. And what is the very first act of a master builder? Is it to mix the mortar? Is it to lay the first brick? No. The first act, the one that determines the scale and scope of the entire project, is a choice. It is a choice about the size of the blueprint you are willing to commit to. This brings us to the first and perhaps most courageous discipline of action. We must explore the courage of a grand vision. I want you to imagine two architects, both of equal skill and talent. Each is given a pristine, beautiful plot of land representing the potential of a human life. The first architect studies the land and proceeds to design a safe, sensible, and lovely cottage. The blueprint is flawless. The materials are sound. It is a goal that is realistic, achievable, and well within the bounds of comfort. It is a worthy project, and the world would be a slightly better place for having one more lovely cottage. The second architect studies the very same plot of land, and in their mind's eye, they see something different. They see the foundation for a magnificent, towering cathedral. A structure that will scrape the sky, that will take a lifetime of dedication to build, that will require immense resources, and that will demand a level of courage that borders on madness. The vision is so large that it is both inspiring and terrifying. The profound question for you today is this: on the pristine plot of land that is your life, are you drawing the blueprint for a cottage or for a cathedral? The winner, the person who builds a life of impact and legacy, is the one who has the courage to draw the blueprint for the cathedral. This chapter is about finding that courage within yourself. Before we can find this courage, we must first understand the powerful, invisible force that keeps most people building cottages. Why do so many people, as the original transcript we drew from noted, limit themselves to what feels comfortable or realistic? It is not because they lack desire. Deep down, every human heart yearns for a life of significance. No, the reason is a force as real and as constant as the gravity that holds us to the earth. It is the psychological gravity of mediocrity. This gravity is the default state of human existence. It is the path of least resistance. It constantly pulls you downward, toward safety, toward predictability, and toward the quiet comfort of the crowd. This gravity is composed of three powerful forces. The first force is the fear of failure. This is the most obvious. The architect of the cottage reasons, if I fail to build my cottage, it is a small disappointment. But if I attempt to build a cathedral and fail, it will be a catastrophic, humiliating collapse. And so to avoid the possibility of a grand failure, they also surrender the possibility of a grand success. The second force is the fear of judgment. The moment you declare your intention to build a cathedral, you become visible. You stand out from the crowd of cottage builders. And visibility invites criticism, skepticism, and ridicule. Who does he think he is? That's impossible. She's just a dreamer. To avoid the judgment of the crowd, most people choose to remain safely within it, keeping their dreams small and their heads down. And the third most insidious force is the tyranny of the realistic. This is the well-meaning, but often poisonous advice from the people around us. When they tell you to be realistic, what are they truly saying? They are handing you a map of their own limited world, a world of cottages, and telling you that it is a map of the world. They are projecting their own fears and their own self-imposed limitations onto your blueprint. These three forces create a powerful gravitational field that keeps the majority of humanity building small, safe, and ultimately unfulfilling lives. So, if we are to escape this gravity, we cannot fight it with willpower alone. We must create a force that is even more powerful. We must generate our own form of gravity. This is the physics of ambition. A grand vision, a magnificent obsession, a goal large enough to stir the soul, creates its own gravitational pull. A small goal, a cottage, has almost no gravity. You must constantly push yourself toward it with the finite, unreliable energy of daily motivation. It is a constant struggle. But a massive, inspiring, purpose-driven goal, a cathedral, is different. It is like placing a sun in the center of your personal solar system. It begins to pull you. It pulls the right resources, the right people, and the right opportunities into its orbit. It generates its own energy. This is why the winner sets goals that scare them. It is not an act of ego. It is an act of strategic genius. A goal that does not scare you a little is not big enough to generate the gravitational pull needed to overcome the inertia of your own comfort zone and the gravity of mediocrity. A grand vision does something remarkable to you. It demands that you become a different person. It says, to build me, you cannot remain the person you are today. You must become stronger, wiser, more disciplined, more resilient. The goal itself becomes the catalyst for your own evolution. The true purpose of setting a goal to build a cathedral is not just to have a cathedral. It is to become the kind of person, the kind of architect who is capable of building one. So, how do we craft a vision that has this powerful gravitational pull? It cannot be a vague daydream. It must be a meticulously designed blueprint. A compelling cathedral-sized vision has three essential components. First, it must be crystal clear. As we have discussed, a blurry vision has no power. You must use the architect's telescope to see your future in high-resolution detail. Do not just say, I want to build a great building. Define it. How many stories tall is it? What materials is it made from? What purpose does it serve? Who will it benefit? The more detailed and vivid your vision, the more real it becomes in your mind, and the more powerful its pull will be on your actions. Second, it must be courageously challenging. This is the scare factor we have spoken of. The vision must be a significant stretch beyond your current capabilities. It must be something that, when you think of it, creates a mixture of wild excitement and a healthy dose of fear. That fear is not a stop sign. It is a signpost, indicating that you are heading in the direction of growth. If your vision does not require you to grow, it is not a vision, it is a to-do list. And third, and most importantly, it must be deeply connected. A goal to simply build a big building for your own glory is a goal of the ego. It is a hollow foundation. A truly grand vision is always connected to a purpose larger than yourself. It is about contribution. It is about service. The architect of the cathedral is not just building a structure, they are creating a space for worship, a haven for the community, a work of art that will inspire generations. When your vision is connected to a deep sense of purpose, to your why, it becomes infused with a spiritual and emotional power that can carry you through any obstacle. You are no longer working for yourself, you are working for your mission. And a person on a mission is one of the most powerful forces on earth. Now, here we encounter a great paradox. One might think that setting a massive, terrifying goal would be discouraging. One might think that the sheer scale of the cathedral would make the daily work of laying a single brick feel pointless. But the opposite is true. A grand vision provides profound perspective. It protects you from the tyranny of the daily setback. Imagine your goal is simply to walk across a room. If you encounter a small puddle of water in the middle of the floor, it seems like a major obstacle. It might stop you. Now, imagine your goal is to complete a 1,000-mile pilgrimage to a sacred mountain. If you encounter that same puddle, what is it? It is nothing. It is an insignificant detail on a grand journey. You barely notice it as you step over it. This is the power of a grand vision. It makes the inevitable small failures, the criticisms, the daily frustrations seem like the puddles they are. They do not have the power to stop you, because your gaze is not fixed on the puddle. It is fixed on the distant, magnificent mountain. This is the deeper meaning behind the idea that even if you fall short, you will still end up further ahead. The person who aims for the cathedral and only completes the foundation has still built something more substantial and has become a greater person than the one who successfully built a comfortable cottage. Do not be afraid of the size of the dream. Be afraid of the size of the person you will remain if you do not pursue it. And so, we see that the first discipline of action is an act of profound courage. It is the courage to resist the powerful gravity of mediocrity. It is the wisdom to understand the physics of ambition, that a great goal creates its own energy. It is the discipline to craft a vision that is clear, challenging, and connected to a deep purpose. And it is the understanding that this grand vision is not a burden, but a shield that gives you perspective and resilience against the small struggles of the day. The architect now stands before the empty plot of land. In their mind, they see the two possibilities: the safe, sensible cottage and the magnificent, terrifying, and deeply meaningful cathedral. The first great act of courage is not in lifting the first stone. It is in the quiet, solitary moment when the architect puts their pen to the paper and dares to draw the first bold line of the cathedral's blueprint. Today, I am asking you to draw that line. You have now had the courage to draw a blueprint for a cathedral. You have dared to think big, but a blueprint, no matter how grand, is worthless without the second part of the equation. The courage of a grand vision must be matched by the discipline of relentless execution. You must not only dream big, you must act big. This brings us to the next crucial discipline of the winner: overcoming the myth of the perfect moment and embracing the power of immediate action. In our last chapter together, we accomplished an act of profound courage. We dared to become the architect of a grand vision. We stood on the plot of land that is our life, and instead of designing a safe, comfortable cottage, we chose to draw the blueprint for a magnificent, sky-scraping cathedral. The vision is clear, the ambition is high, the blueprint is breathtaking. And now we arrive at the most dangerous moment in the life of any great enterprise. It is not a moment of failure. It is not a moment of crisis. It is the quiet, serene, and deadly moment that comes after the plan is made, but before the work begins. It is the gap between the vision and the groundbreaking. And in this gap lies a beautiful, seductive, and treacherous island where more great dreams have gone to die than any other place on earth. That place is called Someday Isle. This brings us to the next and perhaps most crucial discipline of action. We must have the courage to confront and the wisdom to dismantle the myth of the perfect moment. Someday is the most dangerous word in the human language. It is the word that has killed more potential, strangled more ambition, and buried more masterpieces than any other. I'll start my business someday. I'll write that book someday. I'll get in shape someday. On Someday Isle, the conditions are always almost perfect, but never quite right. I'll start when I have more money. I'll start when the kids are a little older. I'll start when I feel more motivated. I'll start when I'm fully prepared. The winner, the master architect, understands that Someday Isle is a fantasy land for the timid. They know that the only time they have is now, and the only place they can build is here. But to escape the powerful allure of this island, we must first understand why its siren's call is so strong. Procrastination, the act of waiting for the perfect moment, is not simply laziness. It is a sophisticated and powerful psychological defense mechanism. It is driven by three great hidden fears. The first is the fear of imperfection. The architect looks at the flawless, magnificent cathedral on their blueprint. Then they look at the muddy ground and the single rough-hewn stone in their hand. The gap between the perfect vision and the imperfect reality of the first step is terrifying. And so, to protect the vision in its perfect, abstract form, they never take the first, messy, imperfect action. The second is the fear of the grind. The initial excitement of creating the vision is exhilarating, but the reality of building a cathedral is that it involves decades of long, hard, and often repetitive work. It is a grind. Waiting for motivation to strike is a subconscious tactic to delay the inevitable, unglamorous labor that all great achievements require. And the third is the fear of finality. As long as the cathedral remains a dream, a blueprint, it is perfect and full of limitless potential. The moment you lay the first stone, the dream is no longer an abstract idea. It becomes a real, messy, tangible project in the real world. It is now subject to the laws of physics, to criticism, to the possibility of failure. Waiting keeps the dream safe in the perfect, protected world of the imagination. These three fears are the currents that pull so many aspiring architects to the shores of Someday Isle, and the only force strong enough to break that current is the disciplined act of immediate, imperfect action. Here we must confront one of the most widely misunderstood laws of human achievement. The average person, the resident of Someday Isle, believes that the formula for success is this: motivation, action, results. They believe they must first feel inspired, feel ready, feel motivated, and then they will take action, which will then produce results. And so, they spend their lives waiting for the magical feeling of motivation to arrive. It rarely does. The winner, the master architect, knows that this formula is a lie. They understand the truth of the great inversion. They know that the true formula for success is this: action, results, no matter how small. Motivation. Motivation is not the spark that starts the engine. Motivation is the result of the engine already being in motion. I want you to imagine a giant, heavy, ancient flywheel. To get it moving from a dead stop requires immense effort. The first few pushes are grueling. You strain with all your might, and the wheel barely budges. This is the act of taking action when you have zero motivation. It is the hardest part of any journey. But then, after a few more pushes, the wheel begins to turn slowly, almost imperceptibly. It has gained a tiny bit of momentum. The next push is slightly easier. You see a small result movement. This small result creates a flicker of encouragement. This is the birth of motivation. You push again. It moves a little faster. The result is more noticeable. The motivation grows. You keep pushing, and soon the momentum of the flywheel itself begins to work with you. It becomes harder to stop than it is to keep going. That momentum is motivation. Your job is not to wait for the feeling of motivation. Your job is to ignore your feelings entirely and simply begin the hard work of pushing the flywheel. Make the call. Write the first sentence. Do the first push-up. The motivation will find you once the work has already begun. So how do we begin pushing the flywheel? How do we overcome that first great fear, the fear of imperfection? You must declare a total, unconditional war on perfectionism. Perfectionism is not a high standard. It is a high-class form of paralysis. It is the enemy of all creation. You must embrace the profound power of the imperfect start. No great masterpiece in the history of the world began in its final, perfect form. The first draft of every great novel was a mess. The first prototype of every revolutionary invention was clumsy and awkward. The first attempt at any great skill is always clumsy. Consider the first flight of the Wright brothers. Was it a sleek, powerful jet soaring gracefully into the clouds? No. It was a rickety, fragile contraption of wood, wire, and cloth that sputtered into the air and stayed there for a mere 12 seconds before crashing back into the sand. By the standards of today, it was a complete failure. But that messy, imperfect 12-second flight was infinitely more valuable than 1,000 perfect blueprints of an airplane that was never built. Why? Because it proved one thing: flight was possible. That imperfect start changed the world. Your job is not to have a perfect start. Your job is to simply get off the ground. Your first business plan will be flawed. Your first speech will be awkward. Your first workout will be difficult. It does not matter. The goal is not elegance. The goal is engagement. The goal is to start, to learn from the messy reality of action, and to iterate your way to excellence. Perfection is not a prerequisite for starting. Perfection is the result of starting and then relentlessly improving. Now we must address the other two fears: the fear of the grind and the fear of finality. How do we overcome the feeling of being overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the cathedral we are about to build? The answer is the discipline of the first brick. You do not focus on building a cathedral. The thought is too vast, too intimidating. You focus with the entirety of your being on one single, simple, manageable task, laying one single brick as perfectly as you can. Your grand vision, your terrifyingly large goal, must be broken down into what I call an atomic action. An action so small, so simple, so non-threatening that it is almost impossible not to do it. The goal, write a 300-page book, is a recipe for procrastination. It is overwhelming. The atomic action is open a new document and write one single sentence. Can you do that? Yes. The goal, start a successful business, is paralyzing. The atomic action is write down 10 potential names for the business. Or make one phone call to one potential customer. Can you do that? Yes. This is the secret to overcoming the inertia of waiting. You bypass your mind's emotional resistance by making the first step so small that the critic has nothing to object to. And what happens when you lay that one brick? You have started, you have pushed the flywheel, you have created a small result, and that small result will generate the motivation you need to lay the next brick. The journey of 1,000 miles does not begin with a great leap. It begins with a single, simple, imperfect step. Your job today is not to build your cathedral. Your job is to lay the first brick. Underlying this entire myth of the perfect moment is a flawed relationship with time. The person who waits believes that time is an infinite, endless resource. I'll do it tomorrow. I have plenty of time. The winner, the architect, understands that time is the most precious, finite, and non-renewable currency they will ever possess. I want you to consider this. Every morning when you wake up, a bank account is opened in your name, and into that account is deposited 86,400 seconds. It is a magical bank, but it has strict rules. The balance cannot be carried over to the next day. Any amount you fail to invest during the day will be lost forever when you sleep. You cannot borrow from tomorrow's deposit. You cannot hoard today's. Every single day, the account is refilled, and the previous day's balance is wiped clean. What would you do? Would you not draw out every single second? This is not a metaphor. This is your life. The person who waits for the perfect moment is the person who lets their 86,400 seconds drain away uninvested every single day. They are squandering the very currency of their life. The choice to wait is not a neutral act. It is an active act of theft, committed against your own future. Every day you wait is a day of compound interest on your potential that you have lost forever. You must develop a sense of profound urgency, not an anxious, frantic urgency, but the calm, focused urgency of a master craftsman who knows they have a limited amount of daylight left to work on their masterpiece. The right time is not coming. The right time is here, and it is fleeting. And so, we see that the myth of the perfect moment is the most seductive and dangerous enemy of all great achievements. We have deconstructed it, exposing the fears of imperfection, the grind and finality that fuel it. We have embraced the great inversion, understanding that action is the parent of motivation, not the child. We have declared war on perfectionism, embracing the power of the imperfect start. We have learned the discipline of the first brick, the antidote to feeling overwhelmed, and we have cultivated a new, urgent respect for the precious, irreplaceable currency of now. Let us return to our architect. They are standing before the empty plot of land, the grand blueprint for their cathedral in hand. The sun is rising. The materials are waiting. The world is holding its breath. The seductive voice of someday I'll whispers on the wind, wait. Wait until you are more prepared. Wait until the conditions are perfect. But the master architect, the winner, has learned to ignore this siren's call. They bend down. They pick up the first rough, imperfect stone, the cornerstone, and with a single, decisive, irreversible action, they place it in the ground. In that moment, everything changes. The cathedral is no longer a dream. It is no longer a blueprint. It is now a reality under construction. You have now laid the cornerstone. You have overcome the powerful inertia of waiting and have begun the great work. But this initial act of courage must be sustained. A single brick does not make a cathedral. This first action must be followed by another and another with a relentless consistency. This brings us to the next discipline of the winner, the art of focusing on the controllable and the power of daily, disciplined execution. In our journey through this third great pillar, the discipline of action, we have accomplished two acts of immense courage. First, we dared to draw the blueprint for a cathedral, embracing a grand vision for our lives. Second, we conquered the seductive paralysis of waiting, shattering the myth of the perfect moment by laying the first imperfect cornerstone. The construction has begun. You have entered the arena, and the moment you step into the arena of action, the moment you begin to build your great work in the real world, you will be met with a storm of complexity. 1,000 variables, 1,000 potential problems, 1,000 unforeseen events will scream for your attention. The supply chain will be delayed, the market will shift, people will disappoint you, the weather will turn. The amateur architect, the novice builder, attempts to control this storm. They run around frantically, trying to command the winds, trying to halt the rain, trying to reason with the waves. They are consumed by the chaos. Their energy is scattered, their spirit is broken, and their magnificent project grinds to a halt. The master architect, the winner, knows a deeper truth. They know that the secret to progress in the midst of chaos is not to control the storm, but to control the ship. This brings us to a discipline of profound power and serene focus, a principle that is the antidote to almost all human anxiety and wasted effort. We must now master the art of focusing on what you can control. To truly grasp this principle, let us return to a simple metaphor. I want you to imagine that you are the caretaker of two distinct gardens. The first is your inner garden. Over this garden, you have absolute and total sovereignty. You are its king, its queen, its undisputed ruler. You have 100% control over the seeds you choose to plant here. These are your thoughts, your mindset, your beliefs. You have 100% control over the effort you put into watering and tending to these seeds. These are your daily actions, your habits, your disciplines. You have 100% control over the attitude and the care you bring to your work. This is your response to life. This inner garden is your kingdom of control. Now, there is also a second garden. This is the outer garden. This is the garden of outcomes, of results, of external events. You can influence this garden. The quality of your inner garden will have a profound impact on it. But you do not, and you will never, have absolute control over it. You do not control the weather. You do not control the global economy. You do not control a sudden pest infestation. You do not control the opinions or actions of other people. This is the kingdom of concern. The fundamental error that causes the majority of human suffering is this. Most people spend their lives trying to control the outer garden while completely neglecting their inner garden. They stand in the field shaking their fists at the clouds, complaining about the lack of rain, while the soil of their own mindset becomes hard and barren from neglect. They curse the pests while allowing the weeds of their own negative habits to run wild. They are so focused on what they cannot change that they fail to work on the one thing they can, themselves. The winner, the master architect, reverses this. They pour 100% of their time, their energy, and their focus into cultivating a perfect inner garden. They work relentlessly on their thoughts, their habits, their skills, and their responses. They do this with the understanding that a perfectly tended inner garden gives them the best possible chance of a bountiful harvest in the outer garden. But, and this is the key, their peace of mind is not dependent on that harvest. Their sense of success comes from the quality of their own effort, the one thing they can truly control. This philosophy can be translated into a powerful, practical framework for your daily life. I want you to visualize your reality as 3 concentric circles. The very center circle, the smallest one, is your circle of direct control. This is your inner garden. This circle contains the things you have 100% sovereignty over. What is in this circle? Your choices, your actions, the words you speak, the books you read, the food you eat, the effort you put forth, your response to any event. This is the circle of pure power. The next circle, the larger one surrounding the first, is your circle of influence. These are the things you cannot directly control, but you can have an impact on. The outcome of a business meeting, your children's moods, your reputation in your community, your relationships. How do you influence this circle? The only way to influence this circle is by working with absolute excellence within your circle of control. Your positive attitude can influence your child's mood. Your impeccable work can influence the outcome of the meeting. The largest, outermost circle is your circle of concern. This is the outer garden's weather. This circle contains the vast number of things you have zero control over. The stock market, international politics, the traffic on the freeway, what other people think of you, the past, the future. Now, here is the secret to a successful life. The average person invests 90% of their mental and emotional energy in the circle of concern. They worry, they complain, they argue, they fret about things they have absolutely no power to change. The result is a feeling of anxiety, helplessness, and victimhood. The winner, the architect, makes a disciplined choice. They invest 90% of their energy into their circle of direct control. They become obsessed with mastering their own actions, their own mindset, their own responses. They are aware of the circle of concern, but they refuse to give it their precious energy. And a remarkable thing happens. As they achieve total mastery over their small circle of control, that circle begins to expand, and their circle of influence grows larger and larger. The daily discipline is this. Throughout your day, as you are faced with challenges and worries, consciously ask yourself, which circle does this fall into? If it is in your circle of concern, you must train yourself to acknowledge it and then deliberately let it go. It is not your business. Your business is in the center circle. This framework of control is powered by a fundamental choice in mindset. In any situation, you can choose to see yourself as a victim, or you can choose to see yourself as an owner. The victim mindset is the mindset of the person who lives in the circle of concern. The victim's favorite question is, whose fault is this? They are constantly looking for something or someone to blame for their lack of progress. They blame the economy for their financial struggles. They blame their boss for their career stagnation. They blame their past for their present unhappiness. The victim's theme song is, "This isn't my fault." And because it is never their fault, they believe they have no power to change it. The owner mindset, the mindset of the architect, is the mindset of the person who lives in the circle of control. The owner's favorite question is, what is my responsibility here? They understand a profound truth. Even if something is not your fault, it is still your responsibility to deal with it. Imagine a CEO whose company is suddenly hit by a massive, unexpected market crash. The victim CEO calls a press conference and blames the market, blames the government, blames fate. They see themselves as a victim of circumstance. The owner CEO calls a team meeting. They say the market has changed. This was not our fault, but our response to it is 100% our responsibility. Given this new reality, what are the strategic actions we can take, starting today, to navigate this storm and emerge stronger? The owner does not waste a single moment of energy on blame. All of their focus is on their response. They take radical responsibility not for the event, but for the path forward. This is the mindset that builds empires, while the victim mindset leads to bankruptcy. You must choose, in every situation, to be the owner of your own experience. If you wish to see a master class in this discipline, you need only look at an elite athlete in the peak of competition. Imagine a championship tennis player standing at center court. There are 20,000 screaming fans. The commentators are analyzing their every move. The referee just made a questionable call. Their opponent just hit an incredibly lucky shot. All of these things are in their circle of concern. They are the chaotic weather of the outer garden. If the player allows their focus to drift to any of these things, the unfairness of the call, the roar of the crowd, the luck of their opponent, they will lose. So what does the champion do? They have trained themselves for thousands of hours to narrow their focus to an incredibly small circle of control. In that moment, the only things that exist in their universe are their own breathing, the strings of their racket, the ball, and the next strategic move. They control their heart rate. They control their inner dialogue. They control their footwork. They focus only on the next play. This is why they perform under pressure. It is not because they are immune to the pressure. It is because they have mastered the discipline of withdrawing their focus from the chaos they cannot control and concentrating it entirely on the simple, immediate actions they can. You must apply this athlete's focus to your own life. When you are in the high-pressure moments, a difficult negotiation, a crucial deadline, a family crisis, you must ask yourself, what is my next play? What is the one simple, controllable action I can focus on right now? Do not focus on the storm, focus on steering the ship. And so we see that this discipline is the key not only to effectiveness, but to peace of mind. We have learned to distinguish between our inner garden of control and the outer garden of concern. We have the practical framework of the 3 circles to guide our daily focus. We have adopted the powerful mindset of the owner, not the victim. And we have learned from the masterful execution of the elite athlete. The person who masters this discipline becomes a force of nature. They are calm in the midst of chaos. They are effective while others are frantic. They are powerful while others feel helpless. They do not waste their precious life force on the uncontrollable winds of the world. They invest it all in the one place it can make a difference: their own actions, their own attitude, and their own response. This leads to a profound state of being, best summarized by the timeless wisdom of the Serenity Prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This is not a prayer of passivity. It is the battle cry of the master architect. You have now learned to navigate the chaos of the construction site. You have the courage of a grand vision. You have conquered the myth of the perfect moment. And now you have the serene focus to control what you can and let go of the rest. You are acting with power and purpose. But action in the real world, no matter how focused, will inevitably lead to setbacks. The architect will face storms that damage the structure. The builder will make mistakes. Now we must learn the discipline that allows the architect not just to survive these setbacks, but to be strengthened by them. It is time to enter the forge, the discipline of character. In our journey together so far, we have become the architects of our lives. We have designed a grand blueprint for our future. We have learned to communicate that vision with confidence and clarity. And we have begun the great and noble work of action, laying the cornerstone of our cathedral with courage and purpose. We have entered the arena. And the first truth of the arena is this: you will get hit. The first truth of construction is this: some walls will crumble. No matter how brilliant your blueprint, no matter how relentless your work ethic, you will face setbacks. You will make mistakes. You will experience failure. This is not a possibility. It is a mathematical certainty. And in these moments, when the dust settles and you are standing before the rubble of a collapsed plan, you will be faced with the ultimate test of your character as an architect. This brings us to our 4th great pillar, the one that forges the very steel of your resolve, the discipline of character. And it begins with the most misunderstood, most feared, and most powerful force in the journey of success. We must now learn the profound art of using failure as fuel. Before we can learn to use failure, we must first understand why we have been conditioned our entire lives to fear it. Why does this one word hold such power over the human spirit? Why does the mere possibility of failure keep so many magnificent cathedrals locked away as nothing more than drawings on a piece of paper? Our fear of failure is not natural, it is learned. It is a program that has been installed in us from our earliest days. Consider the educational system. From the time we are small children, we are trained in a binary world of success and failure. The A grade is success, the red F is failure. A mistake is not seen as an opportunity for learning, it is a mark against our record. We are taught to seek the one right answer and to avoid errors at all costs. Our worth becomes tied to our ability to be correct. Then comes the social consequence. Failure is associated with shame, with ridicule, with a loss of status. We fear what they will say. We fear the judgment in the eyes of our peers, our family, our community. The result of this lifelong conditioning is a pandemic of fear. It creates a world of cottage builders, good, decent people who deliberately keep their dreams small to avoid the risk of a grand visible failure. They choose a life of quiet disappointment over the possibility of a glorious but risky triumph. They are living in a prison whose bars are forged from the fear of being seen as a failure. The winner, the master architect, must consciously and deliberately uninstall this faulty programming. They must engage in a radical re-education of their own mind about the true nature and purpose of failure. The single greatest difference between those who succeed and those who do not is their relationship with the word failure. The average person sees failure as a verdict. They see it as a final judgment on their abilities, their intelligence, and their worth. I failed, therefore I am a failure. The winner sees failure as data. I want you to imagine a scientist working in a laboratory to find a cure for a terrible disease. She tests 1,000 different chemical combinations. 999 of them do not work. Does she stand up after the 999th attempt, throw her hands in the air, and declare, I am a terrible scientist, I am a failure? Of course not. That would be absurd. With each non-working combination, she simply says, interesting. That is another approach that does not work. I have just acquired a valuable new piece of data. I am one step closer to the one combination that will work. You must become the chief scientist of your own life. Your goals are your hypotheses. Your actions are your experiments, and your failures are your data. They are not you. They are simply the results of your experiments. And this data is the most valuable asset you possess, for it is the raw material of discovery. The story of Thomas Edison is a masterclass in this philosophy. The 10,000 non-working filaments were not 10,000 failures. They were 10,000 successful steps in the process of elimination. He was not stumbling around in the dark. He was brilliantly illuminating the path forward by systematically discovering where not to go. He was using failure as a strategic tool. You must adopt this mindset. Every no you receive in sales gets you closer to a yes. Every flawed marketing campaign teaches you what your customers truly want. Every failed project reveals the weaknesses in your strategy. Failure is not the enemy of success. It is the curriculum. It is the tuition you pay for your education in the university of achievement. As we go deeper, we discover an even more profound layer to this philosophy. Sometimes, failure is not just a small setback. Sometimes an entire wall of your cathedral collapses. Sometimes the project you have poured your heart and soul into is revealed to be deeply and structurally flawed. In these moments, resilience is not just about getting up and trying again with the same plan. Sometimes, the highest form of wisdom is the courage for creative destruction. Consider the master potter sitting at his wheel. He is shaping a magnificent tall vase. It is almost complete. But as he turns it, he sees a deep structural flaw hidden in the clay, a flaw that means the vase will never be able to hold water. It will always be weak. What does the master potter do? He does not try to patch the flaw. He does not try to cover it up and sell it as a second. No. With a single, decisive, and seemingly brutal motion, he crushes the entire vase, collapsing it back into a shapeless lump of wet clay. Is this an act of failure? To the amateur, it looks like a tragedy. All that work destroyed. But to the master, it is one of the most crucial and courageous acts of creation. He knows that the clay is not ruined. The clay now contains the memory of the previous form, and it contains the priceless lesson of the hidden flaw. He can now take that same clay, enriched with his new wisdom, and begin again, this time to shape a flawless, truly magnificent masterpiece. You must have this courage. Sometimes in life, you will be working on a project, a career path, a relationship that you realize is built on a flawed foundation. The discipline of the winner is not just to endure, but to have the wisdom to know when to stop, to let go, and to creatively remake your approach. It is not about quitting on your vision, the cathedral. It is about having the courage to tear down a flawed wall so you can rebuild it with integrity and strength. We must now understand the mathematical relationship between the size of your ambition and the inevitability of your failures. The great Michael Jordan famously said, I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times. I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. Let us dissect this powerful equation. The key insight is not just that he failed, but that he was the one with the courage to be in a position to fail so often. He was the one taking the 9,000 shots. He was the one demanding the ball for the game-winning shot 26 times. There is a direct and unavoidable correlation. The size of your vision is directly proportional to the amount of failure you will have to endure. The person building a comfortable cottage may only face a handful of small, manageable failures. The person building a cathedral will face hundreds, even thousands of them. Walls will crack. Supply chains will break. Funding will fall through. The sheer scale of the project guarantees a greater number of setbacks. Therefore, you must reframe failure in your mind. Failure is not a sign that you are on the wrong path. Failure is the price of admission for being on a great path. If you are not failing, if you are not getting rejected, if you are not making mistakes, it is the surest sign that you are not playing a big enough game. It is a sign that you are still safe in the harbor when your destiny is to be out on the high seas. You must learn to welcome failure as a confirmation that you are challenging your own limits. It is the feedback that tells you that you are in the arena, not in the stands. So, we have established a new philosophy of failure, but a philosophy is useless without a practical discipline. How exactly do you turn the raw material of failure into the fuel of success? You must become a master of the autopsy of failure. When a project fails, when a wall collapses, the undisciplined mind is swept up in the emotional storm of blame, shame, and frustration. The disciplined mind, the architect, waits for the emotional storm to pass, and then they walk back to the rubble with the calm, detached curiosity of a scientist. They are not there to mourn. They are there to learn. You must conduct a formal, structured autopsy on every significant failure. You must ask a series of intelligent questions. First, what was my intended outcome? What did the blueprint say should happen? Second, what was the actual outcome? What really happened? Third, what is the gap? What is the precise difference between expectation and reality? Fourth, and most importantly, what is the priceless lesson contained within that gap? What was the flawed assumption I made? What was the weakness in the system? What is the one principle I can extract from this painful experience that will become a new, unbreakable rule for my future success? You must have the discipline to write down the answers to these questions. This act of analysis and documentation is the process of extracting the nutrients from the fertilizer. It is how you guarantee that the failure serves a purpose. A person who does not do this is doomed to repeat their failures. They will make the same mistake over and over again for the rest of their lives. A person who masters the autopsy of failure may fail 1,000 times, but they will never make the same mistake twice. They are on a constant upward spiral of learning and growth. And so, we see that our relationship with failure is one of the most critical aspects of our character. We must deconstruct our societal fear of failure and see it for the limiting program that it is. We must reframe failure as data and discovery, becoming the chief scientist of our own lives. We must have the courage for creative destruction, like the master potter knowing when to begin anew. We must understand that failure is simply the price of great ambition. And we must master the disciplined autopsy of failure, extracting the priceless wisdom from every setback. Let us return one last time to our architect. Standing before the rubble of a collapsed wall, the amateur sees only ruin, shame, and defeat. But the master architect sees something else. As they examine the rubble, they see that the collapse has revealed a deep hidden weakness in the foundation that they had not noticed before. And in that moment they are filled not with despair, but with a profound sense of gratitude. They are grateful that the failure happened now, on this one wall, and not 10 years from now when the entire cathedral was complete. Now, they can rebuild, but they will not just rebuild the wall. They will first excavate and build a far stronger, deeper foundation beneath it. The final cathedral will be infinitely more resilient, more magnificent, and more enduring, precisely because of this failure. You have now learned to find strength in your setbacks, You have entered the forge and have begun to temper your character in the fires of failure. But the character of the architect is not only forged in the solitude of their own struggles, it is also refined, polished, and strengthened by the company they keep. The master architect knows they cannot and should not build a cathedral alone. This brings us to the next crucial discipline of character, the winning circle. In our last chapter, we journeyed into the heart of the forge. We learned the profound and difficult discipline of character, beginning with the art of taking the heat of failure and hammering it into the tempered steel of our own resilience. We have learned to master the solitary work of turning setbacks into strength. But the master architect knows a profound truth. A character forged in the solitude of the fire must then be tested and refined in the company of others. A sword, no matter how strong, is useless until it is wielded. And the character of an architect is not truly revealed until they begin to lead their construction crew. A cathedral is never built by one person. A masterpiece of a life is never created in a vacuum. The strength you forge in private must now be brought into the public square. This brings us to the final and perhaps most influential discipline of character. We must now talk about the company you keep. We must now learn the art and science of building the winning circle. I want you to hold the image of the architect in your mind. They have the brilliant blueprint. They have the confident voice. They have the relentless work ethic. And they have the resilience to handle setbacks. But now, they must assemble a team to bring the cathedral to life. Consider the profound importance of this choice. If they hire a crew of lazy, cynical, and undisciplined workers, what will happen to their magnificent blueprint? The lines will be ignored. The corners will be cut. The foundation will be weak. The entire project will be a disaster, regardless of the architect's personal genius. If, however, they hire a crew of dedicated, skilled, and passionate master craftsmen, what will happen? The blueprint will be brought to life with an excellence that may even surpass the architect's original vision. The craftsmen will offer their own wisdom, solve problems creatively, and hold the entire project to the highest standard. Now understand this. Your relationships are your life's construction crew. The people you allow into your inner circle, the voices you allow to influence your thoughts, the attitudes you allow to shape your own, they are actively co-creating the structure of your life every single day. The winner, the master architect, does not choose their crew by accident. They understand that choosing their circle is one of the most critical strategic decisions they will ever make. Before we discuss how to choose this circle, we must first accept the law of nature that is as real and as powerful as the law of gravity. This is the law of proximity. It is best summarized by the timeless saying, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." This is not a motivational platitude. It is a description of the physics of human influence. Beliefs, attitudes, habits, and standards are not just taught. They are transferred through a process of psychological osmosis. You unconsciously absorb the mindset of those you are closest to. If your circle complains about the economy, you will begin to see scarcity everywhere. If your circle makes excuses, you will begin to find your own willpower weakening. If your circle's idea of a good time is mindless distraction, you will find your own grand ambitions beginning to fade. Conversely, if your circle discusses ideas and opportunities, you will find your own mind expanding. If your circle holds themselves to a high standard of discipline, you will find your own standards rising to meet theirs. If your circle is relentlessly optimistic and solution-focused, you will find yourself becoming more resilient. To understand this law, think of the difference between a thermometer and a thermostat. Most people are thermometers. They walk into a room and they simply reflect the temperature. If the room is 30 degrees negative, cynical, they become 30 degrees. If the room is 75 degrees positive, ambitious, they become 75 degrees. The winner strives to be a thermostat. They have a strong internal set point, and when they walk into a room, they set the temperature. However, even the most powerful thermostat will burn itself out if it is placed inside a giant industrial freezer. The law of proximity teaches us that a crucial part of being a successful thermostat is to have the wisdom to choose your rooms wisely. If you accept this law, then the next logical step is a courageous and honest audit of your current construction crew. You must have the discipline to look at the key relationships in your life and ask, Is this person helping me build my cathedral, or are they subtly sabotaging the foundation? In this audit, you will find that the people in your life generally fall into one of three categories. Category 1, the drainers, the demolition crew. These are the people who are actively negative. They are the complainers, the critics, the cynics, the gossipers. They see problems in every opportunity. They are experts in why something can't be done. These people are not just neutral, they are toxic. They are the saboteurs on your construction site. They don't just fail to lay bricks, they actively knock down the walls you have just built. They drain your most precious resource, your positive emotional energy, and your belief in what is possible. The discipline required here is the most difficult of all. It is the discipline of loving disassociation. It does not mean you have to be cruel or unkind. It means you must love yourself and your future enough to protect your blueprint from those who would tear it up. You must drastically limit or eliminate your exposure to these voices. Category 2, the maintainers, the bystanders. This is the largest and most challenging category. These are good, decent people. They are often our old friends, our family members. They are not negative, but they are also not growing. They are comfortable. They represent your past, not the future you are trying to build. They are the workers who show up to the site every day, do the bare minimum, and watch the clock. They will not sabotage your cathedral, but they will never, ever help you build it. Their presence is a constant, gentle pull back toward the gravity of mediocrity. The discipline required here is intentional limitation. You can love these people, you can enjoy a meal with them, but you must have the wisdom to limit their influence on your core ambitions, your mindset, and your grand vision. You do not discuss the architectural plans for your cathedral with the person who is content building cottages. Category 3, the lifters, the master craftsmen. These are the members of your winning circle. These are the people who challenge you, who inspire you, who hold you to a higher standard. They are the master craftsmen who, when they see your blueprint, say, "This is magnificent. Have you considered making this spire even taller?" They are driven, disciplined, and optimistic. Their presence is a constant source of energy and inspiration. This is the principle of iron sharpens iron. The discipline required here is active and intentional association. You must treat the process of finding and nurturing these relationships with the same seriousness as you would a critical business strategy. A winning circle is not found by accident. It is built with intention. The amateur waits for successful people to find them. The winner, the architect, goes on a quest to find them. How is this done? First, you must seek out mentors. A mentor is a master architect who is 20 years ahead of you on the path you wish to travel. They have already made the mistakes, learned the lessons, and understand the landscape. Learning from a mentor can save you a decade of painful and expensive trial and error. And if you cannot find a mentor in person, you can find one by proxy. Read the biographies of great men and women. Study their lives, their decisions, their failures. You can be mentored by the greatest figures in history, and they are always available. Second, you must find your peers. These are the other architects who are also in the process of building their own cathedrals. They are on the same journey as you. They understand the struggle. This is the power of a mastermind group. A small group of like-minded, ambitious individuals who meet regularly to share their challenges, their breakthroughs, and to hold each other accountable. This is your personal board of directors. And third, and most importantly, you must understand this law of attraction. To attract a winning circle, you must first become the kind of person a winner would want in their circle. You attract who you are. If you are positive, disciplined, and focused on contribution, you will become a magnet for other positive, disciplined, and contribution-focused people. The fastest way to improve your team is to first improve the architect. Finally, a winning circle is not a comfortable, cozy social club where everyone agrees with each other. A true winning circle is a high-performance team, and the culture of any high-performance team is built on the bedrock of mutual, rigorous accountability. The people in your inner circle should be the few people in the world who have earned the right to tell you the hard truths. They are the ones who, when they see you slacking, when they hear you making excuses, when they see a flaw in your blueprint that you are blind to, have the courage and the care to call you out on it. This is not criticism. It is a profound act of friendship. It is tough love. The unwritten contract in a winning circle is this: I will not let you settle for less than the masterpiece I know you are capable of building, and you will grant me the same honor. The arrogant architect, whom we discussed earlier, cannot handle this. Their fragile ego sees this as an attack. But the confident architect, the winner, welcomes it. They are more committed to the integrity of the cathedral than they are to their own comfort. They know that this honest feedback is the force that polishes their character and perfects their design. And so we see that the discipline of character is not forged in solitude alone. It is forged in the fires of failure, and then it is polished, refined, and strengthened in the company of winners. We have understood the undeniable law of proximity, the physics of human influence. We have learned the discipline of conducting an audit of association and the courage to make the necessary changes. We have a clear strategy for the quest to find our master craftsmen, our mentors and peers. And we understand that the culture of this winning circle is built on the unwavering principle of mutual accountability. Let us return one last time to our architect. They are standing before their magnificent, nearly completed cathedral, and they realize a profound truth. They did not build it alone. They see the flawless archway, and they remember the wisdom of the master stonemason who suggested a better design. They see the soaring spire, and they remember the encouragement from their mentor who told them to aim higher. They see the solid foundation, and they remember the tough conversations with their mastermind group that forced them to rethink and strengthen their initial plans. The final masterpiece is not a monument to a single individual. It is a testament to the power of a winning circle. It is a symphony, and the architect was the conductor. You have now forged your character in the fires of failure and refined it in the company of winners. The architect is now complete. The blueprint, the voice, the work ethic, and the character are all in alignment. The toolkit is full. You are now ready to not just build, but to build a legacy. This is the great work and the grand adventure of a life well lived. If the philosophy we have shared today has resonated with you, and you are committed to the journey of becoming the architect of your own masterpiece, I invite you to make this channel your regular source of inspiration and strategy. Subscribe and turn on notifications so that you never miss a part of our ongoing exploration into the disciplines of success. Let us continue to build together. Your subscription is a declaration that you are ready to begin. And now, let us conclude with one final simple truth. The tools are in your hands. The time is now. Begin.